Hey Professor, this is Jeff. So for this video, I'm just going to kind of show you what I did for the first week iLab. For this week, we had to create a custom game mode. We had to install player movement and controls, create a start screen, and a small testing area for the player to play around in. So I'm just going to kind of go through this list, kind of show you what I did here, and we'll begin. So for the custom game mode, I chose one of the template sets provided for you when you start a new project. The game mode that I chose was the first-person shooter template, as was listed in my level design document. With that template, they kind of give you a lot of stuff to work with. So a lot of the player movement and controls was kind of done for me. So what I kind of did was add to the controls. So up top, I went to Edit, Project Settings. I went to Input, and I added in these action mappings. So I got one for jump, I got one for fire, shooting a gun, flashlight button, crouch, use, like an action button that you go when you activate, something that's on the wall or something, and a sprint button and reload. And reload isn't used till later, till I figured out how to get the gun system working. So these action mappings made it easier to incorporate into the blueprints. So I'll show you the blueprints here in just a second. I'm going to go to first person DP, blueprints, first person character. So here's the overview. As you can see, I added to the blueprints with the new actions. So I'll go and kind of show you what I did here. So for the flashlight, I went ahead and added in a new spotlight that's drawn to the characters. So as you can see, input action flashlight, as I showed you earlier, a flip-flop which changes the visibility of the spotlight on or off. I even added some sounds in here to that play. So this right here, this variable spotlight, was created as shown in this viewport. So here's the character, and when I click on the spotlight, I draw this to the screen. I kind of increased the length on it, so it's kind of visible for pretty good distance. But I named this spotlight, and whenever you press the flashlight button, which is F by default, it'll turn it on and off. And when I tested it, I kind of noticed some issues with the handling, like if I drew it and I moved my mouse around, it wouldn't follow. So in order to fix that, I created a handler that will, draw the spotlight and set the world rotation to your mouse X and Y so that it follows along. And that sort of alleviated some problems with getting lighting to work for the player. Okay, next action I worked on was crouching. And the crouch button by default is V. And I added another flip-flop here that activates between two crouch statuses. So I have a crouch and an uncrouch. And I believe these are set by default in the game engine. They set it to a certain Z distance from the ground that will kind of reposition the camera. So the next thing I added in was the jumping. And they have another kind of built-in function here that I used. So I used another input action jump as shown on the project settings. And whenever you press it, you'll jump, and when you release, you'll stop jumping. And it's pretty fast, so that's kind of how that worked. And like I said, they had a built-in function here that is read by the game engine defaults for the character that show you how long or how high the character can jump based on gravity. I didn't mess around with the spawn projectile too much. This blueprint here kind of shows more stuff in here that I added, but that I won't talk about that right now. That's kind of a week 2 thing I did. We'll go down here. The sprint system. So the sprint system I have by default is the shift button, and when you press it or when you hold it down, it'll change the walking speed to 1,000, which by default is 600. As you can see down here, when you release it, it goes back to normal. And this edits the character movement as such. And down here is some reloading stuff too that I won't talk about right now. That's week 2 stuff. So I can edit all these things in here to kind of build upon the movement system and controls. And later on, I'll kind of show you how they all kind of work in relation to actual game. Later on, I even added some more features to the game, like teleporting through a door to get to another level, which I can show you real quick. This is a blueprint I worked on. It'll ring true if the level exists, and it'll send you right there too. And yeah, for my small testing area, I made 2 testing areas: one to test geometry, one to test scale for my level design document. So the next thing I'll kind of show you is the start screen. And people online recommended that you use widgets to draw things to the screen, like a heads-up display. So I kind of used that same logic for the start screen. So what I did here is I'll go to Content, I'll go to Widget, open up the title screen, and this is drawn to the screen on a regular level. The level is black. There's no geometry in it, so it's just a basic 2D kind of map. So this text will draw to the screen. So here's the name of the level, Train to Catch. My level design document takes place on a subway, so I thought that was kind of fitting. And you can add the text to these little boxes, and they do different functions. So on this box, we'll go down here to Events here on the right. We'll click on View. So whenever you click this button, I'll say on clicked button. I didn't have a big name for the button, so button 98. It'll remove it from the screen, and then it'll open up this level called TestTrain. It's a very simple blueprint to whip up. I didn't have to do much to it, and we kind of use the same logic for the other exit button. So on the right, we'll go down to View, and so whenever this button is clicked, it will just quit. It'll just quit the game, which is a pretty 2-step process for that one. So to add this to the screen, I went to make another level called Title Screen, and don't save it. As you can see, this is a totally black level. There's nothing on it. So what I had to do was go to Blueprints, go to the Open Level Blueprint, and there's a quick little process here to it. So when it plays, whenever you're on the level, it'll create the title screen widget that we just showed. It'll add it to the viewport, and it will set it to input mode UI only. So that means basically that means just it's only going to read your mouse. It's not going to go ahead and move the character around because he's not in there. And it will set the player controller to all these different things. So basically we're in a menu mode only, and that's kind of what I was going for. So all this stuff will be drawn, and that'll be that. Alrighty, so for the very last part of the project was to create a testing area. And as I mentioned earlier, I have 2 testing areas. I have one that tests geometry and collisions, which is my TestOpen, and the other that tests the actual training, kind of getting a good layout of what it's going to look like. So I'll show you that. Open that up. Don't save. Okay, and here's what I kind of have. This is a little mock-up I have in my train. It's not very big. This is kind of the size of one compartment. But as we can see here, the character is going to start here, and it'll show you the light of how far it'll reach. I have my benches put in here. I had to add collisions to these because they're actually from the starter packs, but I had to add collisions, and it wasn't too bad. I made some smaller ones here. It kind of looks like a big bus, and that's kind of what I was kind of going for. If I had more railing in here, it might look more like a subway, and if I had some posters put up, but this was all just kind of get a good geometry and get a pretty decent layout of kind of what I was going for. Over here I have I have another blueprint here. It's a collision box. I'll show you that real quick. I wanted to add some locked doors into it that don't open. I have a door that does open and one that isn't available to the player. But this is a little kind of what it does here. When the character overlaps with it, it'll just print a string on it to say the door appears to be sealed. And I'll show you that when I go to test it real soon. Down here is kind of where the door warp was, which I showed you earlier. It'll open up to the TestOpen area. And yeah, there isn't very much to show here, but this was kind of a good scaling and a good kind of start to what I was going for. And I'll open up the TestOpen area to kind of show you what that looks like. So I'll go to Maps and TestOpen, and I'm not going to save that. Okay, So this is a very small open-ended map, and I kind of wanted to do this to test what the collisions were like. So when the door opens up, when the character goes to the door and he ends up here, this is where he's going to wind up at. So there isn't very much to show here, but I was kind of playing around with weather effects and kind of seeing what it looks like. In the test train, the sky is orange and it's very kind of desert-like, which is kind of where my setting of my LEDD takes place. And this doesn't have very much, but I figured that it would be best to make two areas just to kind of show what the cubes are like when you shoot them. So in this kind of scenario, there isn't much to show, but overall, I'm going to show you how the whole thing works out. So I'll show you how the title screen works, what the train looks like, what the controls look like, what we showed you, and just kind of do a quick wrap up. So I'll go to the title screen right here, and I'm not going to save that. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and hit play, just to test and see if it works. And it draws the widget to the screen, as expected. And it says the name of the level, and we have our play and escape buttons. So I'm going to test to see if the escape button works, and it does. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and test this again. I moved the testing screen to a different monitor just to kind of give you a fuller view of what we're working with. And we're going to go ahead and hit the play button again. The widget draws and everything, and we'll hit ready. Okay. The first thing you can probably tell is there's train sounds going on. I added a little a train looping sound effect that plays throughout that level, just to kind of give it a little atmosphere. One thing you kind of notice right away is the flashlight is working. We'll turn that off with that, and that works quite well. And the distance is pretty noticeable, which is good. Test the other controls too. I'll test the V button, which I mentioned earlier is the crouch, and it kind of brings them down a little bit. I can always change that up too, make them crouch even lower. But for now, I think that's pretty fine. Another button we put in was the shift button, which is the sprint, which I'll test. So this is the normal walk right here. It's a nice little pace. We'll go back and check the sprint and see how fast that goes. So sprint. See, he goes a little faster. The other button we added was the jump button. I'll test. That's E by default. So E jumps. Not too high, but not too low. It's pretty decent for me. I mentioned earlier too that I added in a blueprint that adds a message to the screen if the door is locked. So this is the locked door here, and it draws it. This door appears to be locked. And I'll continue to probably use that throughout my project progress, just to kind of let the user know where they can and can't go. But yeah, this is a basic mock-up of my subway, and I added some textures to it. I know we're supposed to gray box it for now, but I think this will work for me. My project, but yeah, the ceiling's a bit reflective. The windows work. Everything can't get out of them, but yeah, this is just pretty simple for me, and I'll go ahead and show you the overall workflow. So if I run right into this door, it'll send me to the other room. So I'll sprint right into it, and there it goes. Now I'm in a different room, and like I said, this was a kind of a built-in test area for my geometry, just to make sure that was working. And if I shoot some of these cubes, I'll kind of go flying. But yeah, I kind of used it to test the jump and everything. Kind of play around with it and just kind of see how the controls all work together. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to pretty much show you for now with my progress. I kind of went through my blueprints and my testing area, my title screen, but yeah, I'm pretty excited to work on the rest of the project. For week 2, I went ahead and created a better looking subway with better dimensions and all that. So in the next video, I will show you kind of what I did with that. Thanks for listening, and yeah, that's all I have to show.